Hey guys, real quick, before we get into it, do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. That way you don't miss out on any of the tea. Thanks.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Charles.
I'm very excited about this episode.
Do tell.
So, for our listeners, Etosha and I grew up on the West Bank.
We did.
The best bank. Which is across the Mississippi River, across from New Orleans. And we grew up in Terrytown.
Yep.
And we met in elementary school, kind of in the middle school period. And this episode is not about Terrytown, but just kind of context. It's about Old Gretna.
About the OG.
About the OG. Old Gretna is adjacent to Terrytown. So there's Gretna and there's Old Gretna. Gretna is more like suburban looking in terms of its architecture. And then Old Gretna is an older part that looks more, New Orleans-y. Kind of the architecture, shotgun houses.
More shotgun, cottage style house.
More kind of a small town feel. They have a little downtown.
Very mainstream.
Mainstream. But there's a lot of interesting going-ons happening in Old Gretna and Jefferson Parish politics in general.
Yes.
Which we haven't really talked about a lot of Jefferson Parish things on the West Bank. So I'm excited to get back to our roots and talk about what's happening here. So how about you give us a lay of the land of some of the more prominent controversies happening in Old Gretna and why we're doing this episode in the first place.
I think to start,
yes.
It would be nice to get a little bit of a juxtaposition of the riverfront, right?
Okay.
Because one of the things we're talking about with Old Gretna, I think one of the reasons why some of the development we're going to discuss is happening there and why it's such a popular area is it's right on the river.
You're right. Everything goes back to the river. Huh?
I think what's really interesting when you look at Old Gretna and Algiers Point, which I would say are kind of the two most bustling areas on the West Bank from a riverfront standpoint. In comparison to if you look directly across from them, it's very different, right? So across from Old Gretna is still a lot of industrial port activity. As you make your way, kind of more downriver, you're getting to the convention center and the cruise terminal, the ferry landing. There's the Four Seasons Hotel, but it's not necessarily super residential. There is residences, right? Like the Four Seasons has a residential component. But then you're getting to the aquarium, you're getting to Waldenburg Park. You can see the French Quarter, but the French Quarter, housing isn't really on the riverfront. You've got Crescent Park, but again, that's kind of repurposed, old port activity, old wharf there, versus when you're in Algiers Point, right? It's the courthouse is right on the river, and you kind of cross over and you're landing right in Old Algiers, where it's houses and it's little restaurants and it's little bars. And Old Gretna is pretty similar in that regard. Yeah, I would say sort of this sexy rebrand, for lack of a better term, is maybe a couple years behind Algiers Point, right? I think we started to see a lot of that kind of start to happen in the Point, probably early 2000s, right? Of I'm going to go open a restaurant in Algiers Point and I want to start this new bar. So it's always been a bustling community, right? I definitely don't want to discredit that about the Point. People who live there have been there. Point. They love it.
And they are diehards, right?
Listen,
Algiers Point people, I would say, any neighborhood in New Orleans, they're
they are about their neighborhood. But I think the idea of drawing people in from the outside with restaurants and things is something that really kind of started to happen more in the early to mid 2000s. And I would say the mid to late 2010s, right, is when we start to see this happening here in Old Gretna, right? Where you've got the River Shack has a location there, and you've got Dough Winner's Bakery,
Outpost of New Orleans restaurants.
Cherry Roasters. They move from across the river to Old Gretna. So
forgot about that.
You're really starting to see just this growth of not just from a residential standpoint, because I think it's always been a pretty robust residential area, but now businesses saying, yeah, I'm going to leave the city. I'm going to come over here to Old Gretna.
Mhm.
But where there is development, where there is newness, there's also always controversy, right?
Absolutely.
So we have seen that there is a brew pub development.
The brew pub.
So Port Orleans Brewing has entered into a tenancy agreement
Yes.
to utilize space in Old Gretna to build a new location of their brewery and have like an adjacent like restaurant pub sort of situation, which great for the area, but has been hemmed up quite a bit with the Gretna City Council. There has been, various accusations around, backdealing or misdealings, both at the city council level and at the parish council level that have interrupted this project getting off to the ground.
Right.
Port Orleans, who, I mean, honestly, at this point, I feel kind of bad for those guys because they're
they
kind of
kinda-
in the middle, right? Like it's this
We
very
just wanted to open a location.
Right, they're
and like all this is happening.
we just want to brew our beer and serve some burgers.
That's all we want.
So, even some potential threats of like litigation that they're like, hey, you guys have reneged on this agreement because like this brew pub has not gotten off the ground. So this is a roughly $10 million project.
Now that's the important part. Where did this $10 million come from?
Well, and so that's this is the crux of it, right? So it's a $10 million project that in some regards seems to be mostly state and city financing. And so that really is the rub, right? There is this feeling of why is this private commercial project being funded almost exclusively by public funds? Right. And that's where we are in the brew pub.
And I just want to give a little quick imagery. So in this part of Old Gretna, we're talking about like their little downtown area, and in this particular few blocks is the courthouse, some government buildings, some restaurants, is the old Gretna City Hall, but there's parking lots, and
yes.
Gretna is kind of capitalizing on redeveloping parking lots into actual buildings, and so this is a parking lot that the proposal was to build this brew pub and also an adjacent parking garage.
Right.
And then a bunch of landscaping. So when it was first proposed, it was like, oh, this is great, right? This is something that you would get in New Orleans. We're going to have it in Gretna on the West Bank, add more parking, which is needed for the municipal complex that's surrounding this. But then this all went back to like, but why is public money paying for this? And that really bothered people. And then not to mention, this idea, particularly in the West Bank, that Gretna gets all the money at the expense of Harvey, Marrero, kind of the outskirts.
So the one thing I will add with regards to that, though, is I think an important distinction is Gretna is a city.
Correct.
Gretna is incorporated in a way that Harvey, Marrero, Tarrytown, these other communities on the West Bank are not.
Correct.
So Gretna has its own city council, Gretna has its own mayor, Gretna has its own police force, Gretna collects its own city taxes, So there are some ways in which, yes, right, there is a tension in finances and things that get highlighted or the ways that light is shown upon Gretna in a way that other areas don't get that same attention. Gretna also has a city council that can tax and do these on their own, right? And so that's a little bit of a rub, but I do think, like, in all fairness, like, that is part of why things can happen differently there is you literally have a different structure advocating for that kind of development and for that kind of structure in the city of Gretna.
So the question is, will this get built? And if not, where does this go? I
mean, that's what's really unfortunate because I think that it is...
Because the building is under construction. It's just a matter of what goes in it.
Right. I think it's a great project. I think it is something that is really leveraging like this just like exciting energy that's happening in Old Gretna right now. It sucks that it's been like mired in such like disarray and controversy. especially the most recent article I read where Port Orleans was kind of starting to threaten, like, hey, like, you guys are in violation of your contract, we're going to sue you. It's starting to feel like,
so they
are
have said
they
that.
going
Okay.
to potentially back away from this? And like rightfully so. This has been a couple
Totally.
years now that like
Absolutely.
this has been going back and forth. They haven't been able to get it off the ground to like get their business moved in. Do you cut bait and run and like, go find another site that isn't going to be as difficult to get this off the ground on? The unfortunate thing, right, is like a different site is probably going to be on the other side of the river.
That.
So the loss of this to business tax revenue in Gretna would really suck and would be really unfortunate. So I'm really hoping that it doesn't come to that, but it's starting to feel like maybe it's more of a headache than it's worth to Port Orleans, and they're going to go find elsewhere. And then it becomes, are you able to find someone else to assume this building? Because to your point, building's already under construction, right? The building's going to be built regardless. If the primary tenant is not interested in moving in anymore, or if we've got like litigation and things that are going on that is preventing a move-in, what happens from there?
I think it would also set a bad precedent going forward for Gretna because
Yeah.
I think they have been trying actively to embrace modernizing a formerly sleepy suburb, if you will, with this momentum. And if this were to falter, like, you're kind of setting the stage now for anything on the other side of the river that wants to come over here to be like, well, this is what happened.
What are your thoughts on the funding?
I see and empathize with the concerns that is this, to your point, why does this private development need money, taxpayer money from Jefferson Parish? And when you listen to kind of the Jefferson Parish City Council members, the ones who have been most vocally, and they're kind of split in terms of those who are supporting.
There's some who are supporting, some against it.
And they have been very steadfast in their stances,
Yeah.
and like have not wavered at all. The ones who are against it are very adamant that if this building that will be completed is using taxpayer money, then it should be not a brewery. It should be something that is a community asset to Jefferson Parish.
Right.
Which I see the validity of that argument. And I will admit that I am confused as to, why this $10 million was proposed in the first place to help finance this, because that's not the norm.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure why that was even part of this. But it's been years now and it's there. And it's at this point, I can play my own devil's advocate and be like, okay, let's just
is it worth it? Is a long-term benefit, the tax revenue, the employment,
Correct.
all of the things that it brings in, worth
Correct.
it?
And to that regard, I think this would be very successful in Old Gretna.
Yeah, I think it would be really successful too. I think
And we set the stage for other projects.
where I have the rub is just if we say, okay, look, it's fine. Let's just do this one. Have you set a bad precedent, right?
Exactly.
That is a way that we utilize public funds here in Jefferson Parish and in Gretna. And what does that mean for other projects that want to do something similar? In some regard, I'm like, yeah, I mean, is there a world where municipal entities are essentially landlords, right? Like, we're going to pay for it, we're going to build it, and you come rent from us.
Which is interesting. I don't know. That's an interesting question.
I mean, like, the convention center is kind of like that.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
The Superdome is kind of like
so
that.
What makes this any?
To the point of like community benefit, I guess those things do in some ways have a broader community benefit, but like not really. Like, how many people have actually attended events at the convention center, right? Like, primarily it's servicing outsiders, conferences and things that are coming, right? Yes, the Superdome can be utilized by the community because events and things happen there and you can go to them, but like, you gotta pay to go to those events, right? So I don't know if it's a bit of a like morality play of like, why is it a brewery? But like,
that's a good question,
ultimately, is that a actual viable and smart way of like building up industry in your community. Is like, hey, we'll front the money, we'll build it. Here's your lease, come rent from us. And one day when they move out and they're gone, like the building's still there. You still have the opportunity to say to some other enterprise, hey, we got a building, come use it. We got a building in a prime location and it's got a parking lot, come use it, So I think it's hard because I definitely as well see both sides of it. It feels a little back dealy, the way that these funds came about, and that is off-putting.
I think that's rubbed people the wrong way.
But in the grand scheme of things, and then you're kind of like making excuses for thievery, right? Like in the grand scheme of things, it works out. Like you stole $10 million, but like you're doing something great with it. So, but that's the hard part, right? I absolutely understand why people were off put by this, because it also feels like kind of back dealing in the way that the funds came about. But the other side of it is, okay, the money is out the door now. The building is being built. What is the best solution for the city and the community more broadly?
And I just thought of this. If anything, we could see this project come to completion, and then Jefferson Parish or Gretna or the combination there within codify something to like we can't do this anymore. Again,
yeah,
right? Kind of we've talked previously about the houses in Central City. Like we can't let this happen.
And that's
again,
probably like,
and I think that's where it might be headed.
The right way to that's how we rectify this. Like what is done is done. This train has left the station. Like, it's already like, how do we ensure that we don't end up in a situation like this again?
Yeah, and I will say, there is a tiny little West Bank bias in me that wants this to be successful.
Well, that's the other thing. It's like you want to see something fun and exciting. I think
Gretna
like
deserves to have cool things too.
Yeah.
And the West Bank in general, right? That it'll create, Gretna, it just creates another reason to go there. Right? Which I think, to kind of your point earlier, investing in Old Gretna benefits Old Algiers and vice versa because they are so close to each other. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I think you said it right on the money. The train has already left the station. It's been left the station for years at this point. And now it's just like, okay, the building's already being erected. Like, what are we doing at this point?
So to end on a high note, what are some of the other exciting things that are happening in Old Gretna?
I think, we kind of talked about it. There's a lot of great eateries, cute bakeries.
Co-work space.
Co-work space, an old school that's been converted to a co-work space. They have a very thriving, active farmers market on the weekend under the train depot. You have Gretna Fest every fall that is very popular and brings a lot of people. I think it's exciting seeing a lot of new infill housing construction, which is increasing the population base in Old Gretna. I think that's really cool. And again, I think it's such a unique suburb in that it's not suburban looking.
Right.
And it's so close to downtown. I mean, you can hop
right
on
there.
the West Bank Expressway. You are there. I think what's happening is Jefferson Parish has finally recognized the value of Old Gretna and what it offers. And, you can afford a house that you can't necessarily afford in New Orleans while being close enough to New Orleans. Right. So I'm very much in favor of any development in Old Gretna. If it's my West Bank bias, so be it. But I think by investing in Old Gretna, you're investing in Jefferson Parish, which means you're investing in the region.
Absolutely.
So I'm pro all of this. At this point, I say just bite the bullet, finish it, let it be.
Give us our brew pub.
Right, give us our brew pub, right? So, but we'll continue to follow this.
Yeah, we'll see how it
follow
goes.
all other developments. Our
Maybe
podcast.
We'll be meeting for a beer at Port Orleans at the end of the year.
And whatever eatery opens there as well. But I like that our podcast does a really good job of just keeping abreast of different development projects happening in the state and the region. Because all of that it's all good for it's good for us to have economic development.
Absolutely.
Right? So we'll keep following this.
No, this was a good one.
It was a good one. I'll post some renderings of the Brewpub that is been, in the news for quite some time. But otherwise, again, Pelican Briefs, we're on all social media platforms. Follow us, subscribe to our podcast, like us. We're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Patreon. And if you have other topics that you're interested in, please let us know. We look at that. Until next time, thank you for tuning in.
Bye, guys. Until
Bye.
next time.
Have a great one.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Pelican Briefs.
If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
If you are loving the show, you can help us keep the conversation going by supporting us on Patreon.
Your contribution on Patreon ensures we can continue producing quality content you love.
Click the link in the description to become a patron today.
Until next time, this is Pelican Briefs.